All right, let's go ahead and get started then. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending our Ward 3 Candidate Forum today. I'm Joanne Kaufman, Executive Director of the Warehouse District Business Association and the Northeast Minneapolis Chamber, all underneath the umbrella of the Minneapolis Regional Chamber. Before we get started today, I have just a few housekeeping things to go over. As you enter the room, you no doubt notice that your audio and video have been disabled. If you are having issues with your audio, please click on the up arrow next to the mute button for audio help. You can communicate with the panel using the chat function. And if you have questions for the candidates, please use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. We will hopefully have time for your questions, so please do ask and we'll get to them as we're able. We are recording today's forum and you will receive a link tomorrow morning after it's been uploaded to our YouTube page. And now I'll turn it over to Christina Palladino, Senior Principal at Park Street Public. Christine will tell us a little bit about herself, go over the rules today, and get us going. Christina, take it away.
Joanne, thank you so much. It is such an honor to be able to sit here and moderate this upcoming conversation on all the critical issues facing Ward 3. This is the last of these discussions, so let's make it a good one. So again, my name is Christina Palladino, Senior Principal of Public Relations and Media Relations at Park Street Public. We are a bipartisan public affairs and government affairs firm in St. Paul, but of course, I've spent quite a few years covering issues in Minneapolis, and of course in the 3rd Ward. I was a reporter over at Fox 9 for the last 3 years, closing out more than 2 decades as a journalist in a variety of cities across the country. So I'm just really excited to be a part of this next hour discussing these issues with you. Let's go over some of the ground rules real quickly, just so all of us are on the same page. We're going to ask every candidate to keep this tone in the forum positive and respectful. We're asking the candidates to stick to a 2-minute time frame for introductions of themselves, responses to questions, and closing remarks. I'll of course watch the time, but I won't be interrupting if you're in the middle of a thought. I will ask some follow-up questions if needed for further clarification. Each candidate will be given 30 seconds to answer a follow-up question. We will be alternating the order each candidate answers for each topic. Again, there are 4 topics for this afternoon's forum. Councilmember Steve Fletcher, we're going to start with you for introductions, and then we'll go on to candidate Merv Morehead, followed by candidate Michael Rainville. Councilman Fletcher, I'll hand it over to you.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you to the Warehouse District Business Association for organizing this panel. My name is Steve Fletcher. It's my honor to serve as the current Ward 3 City Council member. And I'm really happy to be part of this discussion because downtown Minneapolis and the Warehouse District have been an important part of my life since I was a 15-year-old kid jumping on the 17 to come to all ages shows at First Avenue. And even more so when right out of college, I was running a small business that had an office in the Colonial Warehouse building. This has been where my life has been oriented around for a long, long time. And when I got on the council, that was certainly reflected in my approach to really dig in and work with the Warehouse District Business Association and the Downtown Council to really think about how can we make our nightlife even better and really make a lot of this stuff work. And we were making good progress early in the term in thinking about new forms of outreach and thinking about food trucks and other kinds of activation, and a lot of the work that felt like it was responsive to what was happening in those moments together. Rethinking parking and how Uber and Lyft work and digging into all of that stuff. And then obviously we've moved to this pandemic moment that none of us could have predicted, that has us responding to a whole different set of challenges and really working to make sure that the district survives and remains vibrant. And I'm really looking forward to us all coming out of it and getting back to the work that we started early in the term. And I still want to follow through on a lot of those things that we started. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here and to have this conversation. And I hope that I can earn your support for a second term.
Great, thank you so much, Councilman. Candidate Merv Morehead, let's hear from you.
Thank you. Well, welcome everyone, and I appreciate the time that you're spending with us this afternoon. I want to start off with giving you a little bit of background and then talk about why I'm running for 3rd Ward City Council. As far as background is concerned, I live in the Mill District. with my wife. My wife and I have been married for 31 years. We're lucky enough to be parents of two young men. Our oldest actually lives in Northeast Minneapolis, and he works in the Mill District in the North Loop. So what happens in the North Loop is near and dear to my heart, since my son makes his living there. And we have a younger son who is in graduate school at this point in time. I've worked for General Mills for 30 years in a sales capacity. So the first 15 years on the retail side, the last 15 years on the food service side. So I had the opportunity to work with a lot of different operators as they try to grow their businesses, which is obviously important when you're in the North Loop and in the Mill District. During that 15-year period of time, I picked up a number of skills that I think will be valuable to a city council member. One is the ability to listen and practice active listening skills. The second is how to collaborate across different groups of people. The third, and I think this is really important, is how do you produce results? How do you make for people within the city? And then finally, it's how do you lead? In 30 years at General Mills, they don't keep people around, they can't produce results and aren't leaders. And I think that that would give me an opportunity and the skills to be successful as a city council member. There are two reasons why I'm running for city council. The first is frustration. I'm frustrated by the leadership or lack of leadership that's been shown by city council, not being able to talk with the mayor, not being able to talk with chief of police, and quite honestly, not being able to get big things accomplished even within their own group. And the other reason is hope. I do have hope that the best days of Minneapolis are ahead of us, but that won't happen without change. And I think you need to have positive change come into city leadership. And I hope to bring that to the city council.
Great. Thank you, candidate Morehead. Candidate Rainville, go ahead.
All right, thank you very much. So my name is Michael Rainville, and I was born and raised in Northeast Minneapolis. In fact, not only have I lived in the Third Ward all my life, but I have worked in the Third Ward all my life. So for the last 35 years, I took an early retirement in December. I was with the Minneapolis Convention and Visitors Association. And we were the organization responsible to fill the convention center, handle general tourism, and bring in major events like the Super Bowl. This spring will be the Women's NCAA Final Four, and lobby for these major infrastructure improvements. You know, the state of Minnesota has a big investment in the rail system, the Walker, the Guthrie, the stadiums. At the same time, during those 35 years, I volunteered over here in my neighborhood of St. Anthony West Northeast. You might know it. It's Elsie's Bowling Alley is the epicenter of our social activities over here. But I helped work with my neighborhood, other neighborhoods to develop the Ritz Theater, Pierre Bottineau Library with the Children's Wing, Parkland, and the most successful project I ever was involved with as a volunteer was the police substation on East Hennepin and University Avenue. That community policing, that beat cop made it so safe over there. You saw all these high rises built. You know, Lennar Homes, Mortensen would not invest hundreds of millions of dollars in a neighborhood that was not safe, and was safe because of that community policing. I believe that these unique experiences make me very well qualified, and especially the job I had with Meet Minneapolis. I was a commissioned salesman. If you don't listen to the clients, in this case, the voters and the business community, you don't succeed as a commissioned salesperson. I have that ability. I have those leadership skills, and I believe I can make a big impact on the city council because I listen.
Great. Thank you so much, candidate Rainville. The first topic we're going to talk about is public safety. Candidate Morehead, you will be answering this question first. We know public safety in Minneapolis, especially in the downtown area, is the top concern for many people right now, both in the Third Ward and outside of Minneapolis. Recent polling shows a close split on changing the city charter to create a new Department of Public Safety. Whatever direction voters choose in 2 weeks, what is your vision for keeping people safe while also responding to the need for deep structural reform in policing? Again, candidate Morehead, you have 2 minutes.
Sure. I would agree that absolutely public safety is the most significant issue that we are facing as a city, because it impacts almost everything we do. It impacts employees, it impacts employers, and it impacts every resident in the city. I will be voting no on the second charter amendment because I don't think it will add to the public safety or the benefit of public safety in the city of Minneapolis. As we look at it, there are 4 steps I think need to take place in order to improve public safety in the city. Number 1 is we have to stop the bleeding. Violent crime has gone up significantly over the last 4 years. There are an average of 15 violent crimes committed every day in the city of Minneapolis. Violent crime in the North Loop has gone up 100% over the last year. The first thing we have to do is we have to stop the bleeding. We have to bring other organizations into the city to help us, whether it's Hennepin County Sheriff, whether it's FBI, other organizations have to come in to help us stop the bleeding. The second thing is we have to implement reform. We have to do more training on implicit bias. We have to do more training on de-escalation. And we have to identify bad actors within MPD and find a way to get them off of MPD in order to increase the trust for all of the city of Minneapolis. The third thing is, and Michael touched on this earlier, we have to get to a community policing model where the citizens and the police officers get to know each other. They understand what each other is about, and they understand exactly what's going on in the city so they can be more effective at preventing crime, not just responding to crime. And then finally, we have to improve the co-responder program. That's something that the proponents of Yes for Minneapolis would like to see. I do think that we should be improving the co-responder program. However, it's not in lieu of the police officers that we have in Minneapolis. It is along with the number of police officers in Minneapolis. And then finally, we have to restore MPD to previous staffing. The staffing that we have now simply does not work. And I think our city is suffering because of it.
Candidate Rainville, go ahead, unless you want me to repeat the question for you, I can do that.
No, I understand. Thank you, Christina. So the reason downtown is not rebounded from the COVID is crime, plain and simple. The city is in a crisis, the violent behavior. Let's just think of this beautiful young girl driving her scooter home, 18 years old, her whole life ahead of you, and there's a gunfight in downtown Minneapolis. We do not have enough police to respond. And I serve on the Citizens Advisory Committee for the Chief of Police, not only with currently with Arredondo, but before that with Chief Arto, Chief Dolan. And I've seen how the City Council has deliberately cut back. For 9 of those council members to get on the stage that says defund the police, and that, oh, we're going to change policing as we know it, and we will work with the citizens, we'll have a plan and go forward. Well, it's been 15, 16 months. There's no plan. If there is a plan, they're not telling the voters. This is really bad democracy. It's an insult to even put that issue on the ballot. And we cannot move forward as a city until we solve our crime problem. The lack of trust from the citizens to the police is real. It has to be addressed. We have to have better policing. We have to have our own young women and young men recruited to be our police officers, to be our peacekeepers. And to do that, we have to reach out to the Latino community, the Black community. The Black ministers should be on our side 100%. They're affected the most by this crime. And it's ironic that the current city council does not listen to the Black community when they ask for more policing. So we're in a mess. We have to admit it, and we have to do things differently. I have the ability to be that change agent, and we can do this working together with a new city council.
Thank you. Councilman Fletcher, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Well, when I ran 4 years ago, I was very clear that we had to change the way we do policing, that what we were doing was not working and that we were losing community trust. And I have consistently, thoughtfully, throughout the 4 years, worked to build alternatives, to build prevention capacity, and to really think about how could we deliver public safety in a different way, starting with the funding of the Office of Violence Prevention in 2018. Whether we like it or not, the murder of George Floyd is one of the things that our city is known for. When people are thinking about, do we come to our city? Do we come to Minneapolis to visit? Do we have a convention in Minneapolis? That is one of the things that we are known for. And we cannot be known as the city that murdered George Floyd and did not grow and change, that did not actually make significant structural changes and lead the way to a better system of policing. I'm concerned about the safety of people who call 911 and need a response. And I'm also concerned about the safety of people who don't call 911 because they're afraid of what the response will be. And we know from surveys that there's a significant portion of the population that for many emergencies is currently not accessing our 911 system because they don't trust the response they'll get. We have to do better. And so, yes, we are proposing alternative responses to things like mental health response and addiction and homelessness. It is critical that we start responding with care to situations that merit care. We are also responding with prevention to get upstream of the crimes, because by the time somebody comes downtown with a gun in their hands and they're looking for trouble, it's already too late. And we need to be getting to where we can reach people, get the guns out of their hands, get them on a path to better choices. And that work is part of what we've been investing into. One of the things we also have to do is we have to tell the truth. We have to be real, that even if we had had double the number of police the night of any of the significant shootings this summer, those things come up so fast, it is highly unlikely, nearly impossible, that police would have actually been able to intervene. Once we get to that place, what we're doing is investigation and cleanup. And we need to be clear about that we need to have the capacity to do investigation and cleanup. But the deterrence effect, the preventative effect of police staffing is highly questionable, especially in those situations. And we need to be clear, we need to be honest with people that we don't always have solutions and that we need to be focusing on alternatives and we need to be focusing on prevention.
So I'd like to obviously.
And I should say, to be clear, I'm supporting the charter question. And I think it's important that anyone who tells you that they're actually trying to change anything about our public safety system should also be voting for the power to do that.
Okay. So just to follow up for everybody, obviously, there are multiple sides of how you feel on this charter. Regardless of what happens with the charter amendment, I think we can all agree the response to emergencies is not adequate right now in the city of Minneapolis. What exactly do you believe must be done to ensure that there is some sort of adequate response when you dial 911 in an emergency? Candidate Morehead, let's start with you.
Sure. So first of all, I've done a ride with MPD. And essentially they're going from 911 call to 911 call to 911 call. And it's taking a lot of time. There are priority one calls that take an hour and a half to get to. We simply cannot sustain this type of coverage within the city of Minneapolis. And I will differ with Steve. Steve mentioned that more police does not prevent crime. I would point to a study by Morgan Williams, who clearly states, this is a study that goes over 18 years and 242 cities, that clearly states that more police actually reduces homicides twice as much in the Black community. It reduces the number of violent crimes, robberies, and assaults, and it reduces the amount of arrests, because there's a preventative portion of that with police in the area, there is less crime likely to occur. So I think Steve said, well, it's not real clear. This study is 100% clear that particularly in the African-American community, more police reduce homicides and reduces violent crime in the city. We have to find a way to get back to those levels of policing, or we're just going to be chasing our tails for this point forward.
Councilman Fletcher, do you want to respond to that?
Sure. I think it's important not to pick the study that supports your view, but to really look at the whole literature. And the literature is extremely mixed on this question. But what I can tell you is the last ride along that I was on, there was a shooting half a block away. And it is a fascinating experience to be in the car that moves towards the shooting. I respect the courage of everybody who makes the choice to do that. And when we got there, there were already 4 officers on the corner where the shooting occurred. And not only did that not deter the crime, but they didn't catch the person in the crowd who had committed the shooting. So I want to be clear that the presence of police is not an answer necessarily, that we have to be strategic, we have to be smart about our investigations, and we have to focus on alternative preventions and a holistic model of public safety if we actually want to solve this.
If we look at in 2018, we had 27 murders in the city of Minneapolis. 27 is too much. It's our children, it's our brothers and sisters and family members. Last year we had 84. This year we're on pace to have more than that. So there's a direct correlation between the reduction and the amount of police that we have and the increase in the number of murders we have. I know that when you look overall, the FBI or crime statistics would say murder has gone up across the country by 30%. However, in the city of Minneapolis, it's gone up by over 100%. We are clearly missing something here. And when we find other cities that have defunded the police, as Steve is proposing, they're now adding the funds back because they found it's not working. So we need to be very, very clear about what we want to accomplish and what the impact is on the city. I do agree that we need to reform MPD. We need the co-responder program. We need more training. But the fact of the matter is we need police as a basis to start with.
Candidate Rainville, you keep shaking your head. What are your thoughts?
Well, I keep shaking my head because Steve is not being realistic or honest with the business community. You know your business is suffering. When I've gone into the businesses, especially in the North Loop, and they tell me that their customers will not come downtown because it's safe, it just hurts. It physically hurts to hear a shop owner say out loud that their customers do not feel safe. And, you know, perception is reality. And for a city council member to not work with the warehouse district, to work with the shop owners to increase that public safety, at least give them the hope that more will be hired, it's not good government. And as a city council member, I will always listen to the warehouse business district, to all those shop owners. I will make it safe. The number one job of a city council member is to have a safe city, number one.
Councilman Fletcher, would you like to respond to that?
Yeah, thank you. I think first of all, it needs to be clear that we need to draw a differentiation between anything we've done through policy and the unplanned for attrition of officers in the last year. That we had 250 or so officers either retire or go on PTSD disability leave. We're paying a lot of settlements over those PTSD claims. And anytime you've got unplanned for attrition in any operation, that is going to cause problems. And I've supported every single recruiting and training request that the mayor and the chief have put through because we do need to stabilize our staffing in MPD. And we need to differentiate that from any kind of a policy question. I think people using that attrition to kind of create fear about what change might look like is irresponsible. The other thing I'll say is that the business community does not speak with one voice. We had a coalition of over 60 small businesses supporting mental health response and asking us to move forward and supporting the charter change. So there's not a uniform business community any more than there's a uniform Black community or a uniform consensus among the voters in Ward 3. This is an active conversation in every corner of our city that we're going to continue having.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to the next topic. And if there is time at the end, we can clearly circle back since this is probably agreed the most pressing issue right now. The next topic, municipal mission. Candidate Rainville, I'll have you start with this. When we think about the municipal mission and key focus for Minneapolis city government, what would be your top 3 priorities? Candidate Rainville?
Okay, thank you. So first of all, it's public safety, without a doubt, because if you do not have a safe city, you have an empty city. And right now, every one of those building managers, building owners in the skyscrapers in downtown are asking to have their taxes reduced because of their high vacancy rates, because people won't come down. And that tax burden is going to pick up on all of the rest of us. In addition, our city was doing very well because of the entertainment aspect to it, whether it was local people coming into downtown or people from the 5-state area. We were the entertainment capital of the upper Midwest, with the theaters, the museums, the sports, the music. That's not happening anymore. And again, if you go down to safety, People feel very uncomfortable coming into downtown Minneapolis. We have to, as a city, become a safe city. That perception has to go. And we have to be a city that gets along with other government agencies. So the current city council thinks they know everything there is about government. They don't cooperate with the county. They don't cooperate with the state government. There should be very strong gun laws if there was that cooperation with the state government. It's not happening. And we have to all realize that Minneapolis is part of the overall system, the environment of government, and have to fit in with it. Those are my top ideas.
Great. Councilman Fletcher, what are your top 3 priorities as the municipal mission for the city of Minneapolis?
So the municipal mission for the city of Minneapolis, should be, I think, really clear to everybody that we as a city are responsible for our public infrastructure, things like roads and bridges and sewer systems and water delivery. We are responsible for housing and our system of land use, and we're responsible for public safety. And, I think that we have actually made incredible strides, especially in infrastructure. The Parks and Streets Plan has really had us, and people in downtown have felt it this year because we've been working on 4th and 8th and Hennepin and the 3rd Avenue Bridge all at the same time. But as we move out of that, we're going to find well-designed roads designed well for everybody getting around by every mode of travel. And we're really staying on top of a lot of the critical things that people rely on cities for. Cities don't make business happen, but we need to create the space for the business to happen. That's really the goal of cities, is to make sure that that we have a good place for people to come and try to compete in whatever business they're in. And infrastructure is a big part of that. And then making sure that we have housing stock so that the people who want to live here as well as work here are well cared for and are having their needs met. We've already discussed public safety, and I'm sure we'll continue to discuss that as well. But for me, those are the 3 critical things about municipal governance. And if I could add one, democracy is the 3rd. We maintain our elections and we maintain our process of civic decision making, and I think that's a critical function of our government.
Thank you. Candidate Morehead, your top 3 priorities.
The first thing is obviously public safety. We have to make sure that we restore public safety to the city of Minneapolis because it impacts everything else. The second piece is recovery from the pandemic. So how do we recover economically? When you look at 200,000 people that used to come into Minneapolis to work every day, people had to come into work because the Targets and the Thrivens of the world, that was their model. That model has changed because of COVID. Now people have the opportunity to work from home, to work remotely. When people don't feel safe, when people don't have the amenities downtown, then they may choose to stay at home and work, which doesn't add to the tax base. When you have buildings that are empty, when you have Target, 1/3 of their total staff is going to be moving out. It not only has an impact on that staff, it has an impact on the people who work in the buildings. My father was a janitor for a period of time. If he worked in that Target building and 1/3 of the people aren't there anymore, he would have lost his job. We have a lot of folks in the minority community who work in those spaces. We have to make sure that they are able to make a living as well as everyone else. So public safety and recovery from the COVID are intrinsically linked. So we have to find a way to fix that. And then finally, we have gaps in equity. If we look at the gap we have in home ownership in the city of Minneapolis, it's one of the worst in the country. If you look at the income inequality gap that we have, again, it's one of the worst in the country. There are 2 ways to really address that. One is we have to have programs that are targeted at home ownership that give people the opportunity and the resources to own a home because they could pass that down from an equity standpoint. And then we have to have people that start businesses. And we have to get city government, quite honestly, out of the way. I've talked with many business owners and I asked them, is it easy to do business in Minneapolis? And the response is no, it's really difficult. There are a lot of obstacles. There are a lot of challenges that we face with city government in starting a business and keeping it running. We've got to remove those obstacles so we give people the opportunity to start businesses And then if they want to pass those down, terrific, they could pass that down. But we have to find a way to get city government to be an enabler, not something that's an obstacle.
Great. Thank you so much. We're going to move on to infrastructure now. Councilmember Fletcher, I'm going to have you start answering this question. As we emerge from this post-pandemic world, what are some of the most critical infrastructure projects we need to prioritize? Some ideas that have been floated recently include upgrading the Target Center to help boost the downtown area, or building up the Green Cost Share program, which incentivizes properties that undertake energy efficient or pollution reduction projects. What are your thoughts, Councilman Fletcher?
Thank you. Yeah, for me, I think climate resilience is really the right place to focus. I think the Green Cost Share program is a good example of a program that's been increasing exponentially and producing real outcomes. We need to build a resilient grid of locally produced energy so that especially as we start to feel the effects of climate change more, the way that plays out in Minneapolis is that we're going to get more storms and that have high enough winds to knock out big power lines. And we're more resilient if we've got our own production grid, and that's also extremely good for keeping money in the community. The other thing that we need to do that we are starting to do, it's been our bonding priority, is expanding our storm sewer system, which is one of the least sexy things we can talk about in city government, but we are getting a lot of rain. We're getting more rain as we start to see the effects of climate change, and we need to be able to make sure that we manage that so that we don't have flooding, so that we don't have manhole covers getting blown up into the air from pressurized sewers. And so we're taking care of some stuff that people don't even have to think about because we are taking care of it. We're thinking proactively about it. But those are significant investments that we need to make in our city that are very important to everybody being able to continue to function. I also think continued investment in transit infrastructure is the biggest thing that's going to pay long-term dividends. As we have more and more people here, we are either going to have a traffic nightmare or we're going to have a lot more people using public transit and getting around other ways. And I think the more we can get people onto shared modes of travel, the better everybody's quality of life is going to be.
Great. Candidate Morehead, what are some of the most critical infrastructure projects that you think we need to prioritize?
Sure. We'd want to start off with energy efficiency. Climate change is real. Climate change is upon us, and we have to find ways to become more energy efficient, whether that's retrofitting buildings, whether that's solar panels. We have to look at a number of different options that we can undertake in order to become more self-sufficient when it comes to energy. Infrastructure is obviously important as we look at the maintenance of our bridges. 35W is not that far in the rearview mirror when we think about what happened in the impact to the city. So we have to make sure that our basic infrastructure is taken care of. We have to look at the electric grid. If we could get more cars moving to being electric vehicles, we have to find a way to make the electric grid work for that. So do we put up more charging stations throughout the city? What are those things that we could do to incentivize and enable more electric car utilization within our city? And then finally, we have to look at the jewel of our city, which is our parks. That is infrastructure from my perspective. Do we have enough money set aside for parks? Are we keeping our parks up to date and open for everyone in the community to fully utilize? As we look at how do we sell Minneapolis broadly, the park system is one of the key pieces that we sell broadly. We have to make sure from an infrastructure perspective, that is a big part of our community. We have to make sure we allocate the dollars to make sure it remains a jewel within the city of Minneapolis.
Okay. Candidate Rainville?
I have to smile because Merv is absolutely right. The agency I used to work for branded our city City by Nature, because that's what people think when they come here, is how we've interwoven our park system with the rest of our community. And I agree with Merv and Steve on so many of those issues as well. It's after public safety, it is the primary responsibility of the city to have clean water, to make sure the bridges are adequate, public transportation, all of that. And I'm really interested in energy efficiencies. I myself have had an electric car for 10 years, and I see the value. People will always drive, especially those who are a little older. parents with children, you need a vehicle. So to think realistically that public transportation is for everybody is it's really not be realistic, especially with the safety issues. The last survey on public transportation, 73% of the users felt unsafe. That's a lot of users. But just think if overhead wires, if as we redo our streets, as we work with the electric company to put those wires underground, just like we have our gas mains. That's of particular interest to me. I think moving forward, as we green up our city, plant more trees, we have to put those wires underground.
Yeah, and I just have a follow-up question for each of you. And again, 30 seconds to respond. Do you think the pandemic has changed your thoughts on how we do transit in the city of Minneapolis, with less people commuting to the office right now and going downtown, particularly in the third ward? Any thoughts on how we kind of move forward with future transit projects? Candidate Rainville, could you answer that?
Well, yes, the stats show people are buying more cars now. That's part of the reason there's a shortage, because they don't want to commute on public transportation. So that has to change, not only Minneapolis, but all over the country. And again, people who are a little bit older, you can't take mass transportation, public transportation to your specialized doctor's appointment. If you're a parent and you're running your children around to hockey games and going shopping, that's just unfeasible. So there are always going to be cars. We have to accommodate that in our system.
Councilman Fletcher?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question? I want to make sure I'm answering.
Just wondering your thoughts on kind of, as we emerge from this pandemic, your thoughts on transit and how we make that work in the future.
Sure. Well, you know, I think that one of the things that we were already talking about pre-pandemic, as the city becomes more dense, and especially the core cities, but I think it's especially true as commuting patterns change, that shifting away from the hub and spoke system. Minneapolis's transit system is really defined by being the best system in the world to get you to Nicollet and 7th. And if you want to go anywhere else, you're going to have a transfer and you're going to have extra time added to your trip, because you basically have to run through the center of downtown, you know, to get anywhere. And so more and more looking at connecting neighborhoods, that what people are really looking for is ways that they don't have to use their car for as many trips, right? We know that there are some people who are not going to give up their cars, but 20 to 40% of the trips that people are taking every day, they would use transit or they would use biking if they felt safe, if they felt like it was efficient and it was going to get them where they were going. And so getting to a place, so one of the things we advocated for example, that happened is we got Route 3 rerouted. So when it comes through now, it connects the Mill District and the North Loop straight up and down Washington Avenue. So you don't have to remember where does it jog over to get to Nicollet and sit through all the delays that come with all of that winding in and out of downtown. You can just go to Washington Avenue and there's a bus every 10 minutes. And that's a really exciting improvement. I think we're going to see more and more people wanting to be connected to neighborhoods so that you hopefully have most of your needs met in your own neighborhood. And then you can get a lot more of your needs met within 15 minutes by bike and transit.
Yeah. Candidate Morehead, just thoughts on the post-pandemic world and how we use transit with, you know, more people working remotely?
Sure. I think we have to have a more balanced approach, and we can't punish people as a way to influence them to move in one direction or another. We have to offer many different options. I talked a little bit earlier about the 200,000 people that were coming into work in Minneapolis from outside of the city. We don't want to put another obstacle in their way to come downtown by making it very, very challenging to drive into the city of Minneapolis. It'd be terrific if they would use public transportation as an option. We should have that option available, but we can't make it a challenge, another challenge where people think, well, I'm not safe. And oh, by the way, it's a pain to get downtown because of the roads were rerouted. There's heavy traffic and I might as well just stay where I'm at. Thank you very much. So we have to have a balanced approach that meets the needs of everyone without punishing people in order to get to a means that we want.
Okay. Last topic here, doing business in Minneapolis. Candidate Morehead, I'll have you respond first. What is your plan to create an environment that people want to return to for both work and play?
Sure. So I've had the opportunity to talk with a number of small business owners in the city of Minneapolis, and quite honestly, they're frustrated. They're frustrated because they don't feel like they get a fair shake at the table. They think larger corporations, and I work for a larger corporation, has more influence than what they do as a smaller group. So it's getting these groups together, the Warehouse Business Association is certainly one step that has a larger voice in city government, but we have to give some of these smaller businesses the opportunity to elevate their voice. We have to remove obstacles from them. When I hear it is a pain to do business in the city of Minneapolis, it's frustrating. You want more people to open businesses, to start businesses, to hire people within the city of Minneapolis, and we're just not a business-friendly environment. We say we like small business and we want to protect them, but our actions don't follow up with the words, because all the small businesses I talk to say there are too many obstacles. There's too much red tape. We don't have someone that is helping us in city government. So that's number one. Number two, I think once we get the public safety issue resolved, we have to have a full-on press with a marketing campaign that talks about the city of Minneapolis being back in business, the place you want to go with your family, the place you want to go to work, the place you want to take your friends to, the place where people will come and visit. I've talked with business owners and they're frustrated saying, I've got friends, I've got relatives that won't come downtown anymore to my small business because they're afraid. Once we fix that, then we have to have the full-on press to have Minneapolis be open for business again.
Candidate Rainville.
Thank you, Christina. So I'm going to say this every time I'm asked, almost every question I'm asked, it's all about safety. And when people are afraid to go to the Loon Cafe, when they're afraid to go to Murray's, when they're afraid to walk down Nicola Mall, that is just not going to work. The perception of safety is terrible. We have to start with more community-oriented policing like beat cops. We have to increase our police staffing, as well as continue the wonderful efforts to have co-responders and to recruit more. There's a lot of good things that Chief Arredondo has instituted. We have to support him and keep those moving. And we also have to provide good access to our government, whether it's CPED and their programs for the small business loans, whether it's the city council member returning emails and phone calls, or their staff being consistent and not turning over. Those are big, important issues for the business community. And last, I would say that we have to change the habits of people who are entertaining themselves. Right now, they do not come into downtown Minneapolis. All that tax revenue is lost. Although that job creation is lost. People are closing down their restaurants at 10:30, 11 at night to walk their staff out to safety. It's just not worth being open because they're empty. We have to have a really, really creative way to change the perception of downtown Minneapolis, because that is the only way we're going to pull out of these doldrums.
Councilman Fletcher.
Well, I think the key to really reactivating downtown business is small business. And I think there are ways that we need to do better, and there are ways that we've been working to make improvements. I think everybody who works at a big company, the thing that draws them to come downtown is the small businesses, the place you can go grab lunch on the Skyway, the place you can go get a cup of coffee. And without those things, it doesn't feel like it's worth commuting in if you have a choice to work from home. And so I think it's very important that we get all of those going. And, we've created a small business team. I think it is true that I think our city is known and certainly was known when I came into office as a city where you kind of needed to hire a lobbyist to navigate all of the bureaucracy. And we've been working to find advocates and find ways to help people navigate through that and find ways to simplify policies and reduce fees so that we can make it easier to do business. Our small business team is a new thing that we've invested in, so that there are people who you can call if you're trying to start a small business or you're needing technical assistance. And we've funded a lot of community partners all over the city. So whatever neighborhood you're running your small business in, there are community partners who can provide technical assistance and help you without you having to hire a lobbyist or having to be part of a big chain or something. And I think that's really important. So getting small businesses activated again, and yes, making it easier for small businesses to succeed is absolutely something that we're working on. The other thing that we're doing is really putting an equity focus on that. I think it's very important to our whole community and to our whole community's future that we're investing especially in businesses that have been historically deprived of access to capital, deprived of access to opportunity, and who we can make sure that someone who might not have the best credit, might not be someone who can walk into a bank and get their business loan, can get some support from the city in getting their financing and getting a chance to try to open a business and have a go at it.
We have two questions from participants, and I think it's time that we ask those, and they relate directly to what we're talking about, so it's great timing. One of them from Dario and Selmo. I am a longtime landlord in the warehouse district. Our tenants have weathered a number of storms this past year, as we all know, and they are still nervous about public safety issues. On top of all this, the neighboring building, which apparently is a sex industry business, just painted their building bright red and green. We are in a historic neighborhood with rules that regulate things like this. What can be done to stop and correct situations like this as they degrade the neighborhoods in so many ways? Thank you. Councilman Fletcher, why don't you take that?
Sure, I appreciate the question, and I think there are actually some really important ways that the way everybody maintains their business, especially in a historic district, is part of what maintains the look and feel that makes it a desirable place. We have issued an order to correct. They're absolutely not allowed to paint their building in that way, and you know, they have, I think, 30 days to correct it or something. So that paint is going to get removed from that brick. It's not okay to paint unpainted brick in a historic district, and they certainly did not have approval to do that. That's a good example. I'm sure that business owner then will complain about how hard it is to do business in the city. And so sometimes we're enforcing rules for a reason. Sometimes we have those regulations because it really does contribute to the overall environment and well-being of the whole district. But certainly in this case, as soon as we first saw that happen, we were on top of it. We were in touch with Joanne from the Warehouse District Business Association about it. And the order to correct has been issued. So the brick will be restored.
Candidate Morehead or Candidate Rainville, will either of you like to just kind of respond in general to this warehouse landlord's concern?
Well,
Sure. Go ahead, Michael.
Thank you, thanks, Mayor. So Dario, I'm really glad to hear that the city is on that, and you're in a good shape. I'm sure it's going to be corrected. But I will tell you, I was at one of my nieces got married, and we had the reception upstairs of your building a couple weeks ago. The groom's family was from Faribault, and they were all a little nervous about coming in downtown Minneapolis. We were up on the rooftop. It was beautiful. I assured them everything is good. And then personally, I left at about 9:30 because I didn't want to be downtown when it was dark. And you know what happened at 11 that night? There was a big shooting right down the street, 2 blocks away. So all these great people from Faribault, Minnesota, got back in their cars and drove away thinking, what the hell is going in downtown Minneapolis?
Candidate Morehead?
Sure. To be really specific about the issue that was brought up, you have to look at the ordinances, particularly when it comes to historic buildings, and make sure people are following those ordinances. There may be some frustration there, but for the betterment of the entire community, you have to make sure that those types of ordinances are being adhered to. The other thing I would say is we have to look at some smaller groups that could get together to talk about, you know, what they think may help us as far as the development of the neighborhood is concerned. There are small business owners that are more than happy to talk with us about what they need and what they think will help. I know there's a small business group being developed within City Council. However, that's being developed from within the City Council. They're not the experts in this area. We need to tap into the experts, and those are the local business owners, the local property owners, that'll help us understand what it takes for them to be successful and thrive. Right now, they're trying to survive, right? And that is no way for the long term to run a business, just surviving every day. We have to get to the point where they're thriving and they're bringing more investment into the city. So a small business group that works together, that helps City Council understand where we have to go, would be beneficial in these types of issues.
All right, I just want to get this one last question answered, then we'll move on to closing remarks. This is from Tim Mahoney, owner of the Loon Cafe. What about safety on the light rail? Michael Rainville, would you like to take this?
Well, the light rail, we have to realize, is run by the Met Council. So again, in my earlier remarks, I talked about Minneapolis not being the island and thinking they're the only government that matters. We have to get along with the Met Council and with the state of Minnesota. So Eddie Frizzell, when he was inspector in the 1st precinct, when he got promoted to be chief of police, I did a ride along with him, a walk along in downtown. And he explained that there is to create that safety on the light rail platforms, you need to secure those platforms and only allow people on it that have a ticket. That takes political courage. That has to come from the Met Council with encouragement from our city. We should be working hand in hand with Metro Transit to secure those stations and keep the crime off of them.
Councilman Fletcher.
Well, so I think I probably disagree about whether fair enforcement should be the priority. I actually think that there's a shift in the way we think about law enforcement, that people should be focusing on the people who are actually causing disturbances or actually causing a sense of unsafety. And you know, this is a conversation that we've had, but certainly we've been working to try to create a greater sense of safety on the light rail, including over the course of this term, we've really negotiated improvements to the collaboration between the 1st precinct and Inspector Peterson's group with Chief Frizzell, so that MPD feels comfortable going onto the light rail platforms. There had been sort of a division where they felt like that was kind of a free zone that changed jurisdictions, and they weren't working well together when I came into office. And that's one of the things that is a part of the sort of collaborative, bringing everybody together work that we did with the Nightlife Implementation Committee, especially in its various forms over the 4 years, that we've gotten improved. So, you know, I think we might disagree about fares. You know, honestly, fares on transit, I think public transit should be free. So I'm not going to lean on fares as the answer to enforcement, because I think that collecting fares is ideological, and it would be a lot better for everybody if we just invested in that as public infrastructure.
Candidate Morehead.
Sure. As we look at the investment the city is making in light rail and bus lines, the investment that we're making on Hennepin Avenue and other areas, we're never going to maximize that investment if people don't feel safe. So that's the current situation that we're in, is people don't feel safe in those areas. There are people that may have means that can find other means of transportation, but there are those that is their only choice. They are trapped in getting into a system that is not safe. So we're not serving those people the way we should. Now, the way I think we need to look at this is we have a number of entities that are responsible for public safety within the city. You've got Hennepin County Sheriff, you have MPD, you have Metro Transit Police, you have Park Police. There are a lot of different organizations that do different things within the city. We have to find a way to coordinate those responses in order to create a broader safety net within the city. I live really close to a light rail station, and you could see squad cars there almost, a couple times a week because of issues in that space. We have to make or have a more coordinated effort in order to identify those hotspots and get people there that will create a deterrent to crime and also respond to crime really, really quickly.
Okay, to end this, I'm going to each have you do your closing remarks. Let's keep it as close to 2 minutes as we can. Candidate Rainville, I'll have you start.
Okay, thank you, Christine. So as I expressed earlier in my opening remarks, I am a community builder. I have spent my life, whether professionally building up downtown or as a volunteer building up Northeast Minneapolis. I have the skills to do the job. I have important listening skills. I have the ability to empathize with all who contact me and to get back to them. I am the right person to lead the Third Ward into the changes that are necessary in this city as we begin to heal and move ourselves forward. I really appreciate the opportunity today. I appreciate the service that SEVA's provided, and I appreciate Merv running for office. It takes a lot of time and effort, but it's been an incredible journey for me. The last 10 months, I've talked to thousands of people. The city is ready to change. We're ready to move forward, and I'm the person to be that leader. Thank you.
Fletcher.
Well, thank you very much. And I'll echo the thanks to Michael and Merv for stepping forward and running. I think this is a great conversation. We've got 2 more weeks and then the voters decide. And I'm hoping that you'll send me back for a second term. I think it's very important that we follow through on a lot of the work we've begun on housing policy, on environmental justice, and on the work of transforming public safety, which we absolutely have to do. I am passionate about this community and I've worked hard for this community, and it would be my honor to continue to serve. Thank you so much to everyone who organized this debate and everybody who took the time to watch.
Candidate Morehead.
Sure. When I went through my introduction, I talked about why I was running. It started with frustration and hope. I really want to focus on hope now, because I do believe that the best days for Minneapolis are ahead of us. But we are at a crossroads. We're at a crossroads with respect to public safety. We're at a crossroads with respect to how we recover from COVID. And we're at a crossroads with respect to equity within the city. To me, it's clear that we do not have the leadership within City Council at this point in time to move us forward. You need someone that has the ability to listen. You need someone that has the ability to lead. You need someone that has the ability to collaborate across groups. And finally, you have to have someone that delivers results. Through my career, I've been able to deliver results for General Mills, and I want to deliver results for the people that live in the third ward. So I would graciously ask for your vote. And I would also like to thank Michael and Steve for their engagement in running for City Council. And I'd also like to thank everyone who attended the call today.
Great. Candidate Morehead, Candidate Rainville, Councilman Fletcher, thank you so much for being a part of this. I hope everyone who tuned in really enjoyed this vibrant discussion. Joanne, I'll hand it back to you.
Of course, I was muted. Thank you all for being here today. I think that we had a great conversation today, and I appreciate everyone attending. Thank you to our candidates as well, Councilmember Fletcher, Candidate Morehead, and Candidate Rainville. We have some events you may be interested coming up, including Chamber 101, excuse me, where you can learn more about the Minneapolis Regional Chamber, what we're doing, and what our great member benefits are. That's coming up on November 3rd, the day after the election, and that will be in our offices. And we'll also have a 2021 election recap on Thursday, November 4th. You can learn more about these events and so much more on our website, mpLSchamber.com, where you'll also find our terrific new 2021 election resources, a guide to all things election related. Thank you all. Have a great rest of your day, and please remember to vote on November 2nd.